Chapter 244 Dual Cultivation. Satisfied. What does he mean, satisfied? When Han Li heard this, he did not know why he felt uneasy. All he knew was that when he heard Li Huaiwen incessantly praise him again, he had an even worse premonition. Furthermore, he already discovered that ever since he entered the room, the young woman had shot several stealthy glances at him with an expression of complete discontent. In addition, when this martial senior Hong Fu said that he was very good, his figure slightly shook and he hastily lowered his head. Meanwhile, a gaze filled with hostility swept toward Han Li, frightening him for a moment. He couldn't help but return the gaze. It was actually 7th senior martial brother Wu Xuan who had previously introduced him. When Wu Xuan saw Han Li respond to his gaze, his face contorted with surprise. He immediately shifted his gaze with a guilty appearance. When Han Li saw this, he was filled with suspicion. However, his expression maintained his usual patient and calm expression. Seeing him instinctively maintain his calm, the red-clothed woman inwardly continued to nod her head. It will be this child. I feel like he is very suitable. I will first return with Xuan and will calmly wait for good news from martial disciple. The red-clothed woman suddenly said as she nodded her head. Senior martial sister, be at ease. I will surely make the proper arrangements. Li Huaiwen saw that the woman wanted to leave, so he hastily consented and saw them both out. As Han Li regained his senses, martial senior Hong Fu had already left with the young woman. When Li Huaiwen and his wife brought Han Li and the others to the main hall, they were beaming with happiness, both smiling without saying a word. The two returned to their seats and sized up Han Li without end. It was unknown what intention they had. Han Li, as your master, I must first congratulate you. Li Huaiwen happily looked at Han Li for a moment before suddenly saying such senseless words. This caused Han Li's heart to beat harder and be even more uneasy. Disciple truly doesn't know what to be happy about. Master, please enlighten me. Han Li respectfully said with a dark foreboding dwelling in his heart. Shi. This is an extraordinary matter. When your martial senior Hong Fu saw you, she was interested in having you and a disciple of hers to form a bond as dual cultivation companions. The young woman did not wait for Li Huaiwen to reply and was the first to unravel the riddle, causing Han Li to become dumbstruck. Become dual cultivation companions? Han Li muttered and became despondent. This was far too surprising. What is this? This is a fine thing that others dream of having but can't obtain. You should know that female cultivation disciples are originally few in number. Those capable of cultivating to foundation establishment are, pathetically fewer. Also, dual cultivation a mutually beneficial method to enormously advance the cultivation of both sides. Others will not be able to find such a boon even with a lantern. Li Huaiwen said with a happy expression. With what he said, to be able to form a relationship with martial ancestor Hong Fu who possessed profound magic power was greatly advantageous. Who didn't know that this female immortal Hong Fu stood near the top of ratings in the state of Yue for core formation cultivators? In Yellow Maple Valley, her magic power was only second to the great ancestor. After thinking about the benefits of forming a close relationship between disciples, Li Huaiwen had a dignified, old-fashioned bearing and chuckled continuously. This disciple had never thought of dual cultivation before. This is truly unexpected. Moreover, there are so many male cultivators with appearances and aptitudes far greater than this disciple. How could she come to find me? With his wits returned, Han Li could only bravely reply to his question. However, this caused him to remain greatly perplexed. This is disciple's good luck. Your martial ancestor Hong Fu previously had an emotional wound when she was young and came to completely loathe frivolous, handsome men. Thus, she came to select a companion for her disciple. Naturally, male she finds unpleasant to the eye were beneath her consideration. As such, finding a disciple with a similar age and looks that do not disgust her could not be found with the several hundreds of foundation establishment disciples inside Yellow Maple Valley. Your martial senior Hong Fu has visited several immortals' caves similar to your master's, and you were the first one she saw that she was completely satisfied with, Li Huaiwen said with satisfaction. As for aptitude, your martial senior isn't particularly picky. The disciple of your martial senior, that young woman who stood at her side today, although her aptitude isn't nearly as ridiculous as your own, she is also mediocre and isn't exceptional in any way. I heard that she had to take 3 foundation establishment pills and many precious medicines in order to barely reach foundation establishment. If it weren't for the fact that she was a close descendant of your martial ancestor, there absolutely wouldn't be much reason to spend such a large amount of attention on that girl, but because of their relationship, the girl received much favor. Li Huaiwen explained to Han Li. He then nodded for a moment and sighed, continuing, actually in the start, I hadn't thought to recommend you but instead call forth your 7th senior martial brother. After all, whether it's appearance or aptitude, your senior martial brother Wu Xuan exceeds you by no small amount. Although I knew that your martial senior Hong Fu has some prejudice against handsome men, I held a slight hope to try for a fluke. You should know what resulted. Your senior martial brother Wu was unable to pass by your martial senior and was denied, though I did see that Dong girl greatly approve. After Li Huaiwen said this, he looked at Wu Xuan, causing his face to become very red and be at a complete loss. Han Li suddenly realized why his senior martial brother was hostile and cold towards him. It was because he had been eliminated as a candidate. It seemed he and the young woman had taken a liking to each other. However, Li Huaiwen words Dong Girl 1 caused Han Li to recall of the matter of senior martial brother Lu whom he had previously killed. On the night of senior martial brother Lu brutal display, he seemed to have mentioned the name of that Dong girl and martial ancestor Hong Fu. Could it be that this girl had been on good terms with that wretched ingrate? With that thought, Han Li felt uncomfortable from head to toe. His impression of martial senior Hong Fu's disciple immediately dropped down without the slightest good opinion towards her. After he heard Li Huaiwen's analysis, he felt that he had to thoroughly extinguish this matter. In truth, Han Li wasn't particularly opposed to dual cultivation, let alone if the other party was a disciple of a core formation cultivator. Becoming a Dao companion with such a figure would bring endless benefits. He didn't immediately agree with apprehension as the secrets he held were too many. He truly couldn't allow for anyone to stick close to him. As of current, Han Li couldn't agree to such an absurd matter. He had no interest in picking up a companion. Furthermore, that Dong girl should have a favorable impression toward young confident and handsome men. She simply wouldn't fancy him. With this thought, Han Li hesitated for a moment and said somewhat unnaturally, disciple feels that this is somewhat inappropriate. On one hand, this is somewhat too unexpected. Disciple hadn't prepared himself in the slightest. On the other hand, disciple saw that martial senior Hong Fu's disciple wasn't satisfied toward this disciple. Although senior Hong Fu may be strongly pressuring her, creating a good chance for disciple, in the end a strongly wrung melon isn't sweet. Master, please look for another disciple and give him a try. Perhaps there would be a more appropriate candidate than this disciple. When those words left Han Li's mouth, the intent of rejection in those words was undoubtable, slightly surprising Li Huaiwen and his wife. The young woman seemed to have thought of something but didn't speak. His master wrinkled his brow and seemed somewhat irritated. You hear this out? Your master has already patted his chest, agreeing to this matter with your martial senior Hong Fu. How could I go back on it? Even if there were more appropriate candidates, your master would not go back on his word. As for your worries that the girl isn't willing, that is a matter not worth fussing about. Of us cultivators, how many Dao companions are there that immediately have affinity for one another? Even if they spent a long time with each other, they naturally wouldn't all be completely harmonious. Li Huaiwen had a somewhat strict tone. His words faintly carried a trace of rebuke. When Han Li heard this, he inwardly complained without end, but when he immediately searched for an excuse, he was unable to find one. But at this moment, the young woman suddenly said a few words that startled Li Huaiwen, finally breaking the siege on Han Li. Han Li, you and that Dong girl entered the sect around the same time, and your time to enter Foundation establishment wasn't too far from hers as well. During this time, have you heard the rumors flowing around? Rumors? The young woman's words stunned Li Huaiyuan. He couldn't help but ask this with surprise. When he saw Han Li's silent tacit agreement, he felt even more surprised. This was something that several close friends and I chatted about a few times. I heard a few bits of rumors, but they most certainly couldn't be true. The young woman faintly bit her lips, as if she were embarrassed to have said this. You too, leave for a bit. Han Li by himself will be enough. When Li Huaiyuan saw his wife act as such, he muttered to himself for a moment. Then he waved his hand, gesturing for Song Ming and Wu Xuan to leave the guest room. Han Li was now the only disciple inside. Song Ming was indifferent. When he heard the order, he saluted and asked to be excused. Although that Wu Xuan didn't dare to disobey his master and closely followed behind Song Ming, there was a trace of unwillingness on his face. He looked at Han Li with a rather peculiar gaze. After Han Li noticed this, he sunk into deep thought. The Dong girl and Martial Senior Hong Fu were first mentioned in chapter 166 by Senior Martial Brother Wu, who wanted to rape Junior Martial Sister Chen.